Welcome back, everybody, to our next episode of the virtual Heart of the Business Conference. I'm Tom Jacobs, and along with my co-producers, Rita Hernandez-Figge, Jake Bartelt, and all the employees at MedHQ, we welcome you back to the next episode of the Heart of Business Conference. We're joined by John Page, our host and discussion moderator, as well as today's special guest, Lisa Hinton. Lisa is the Executive Director and Senior Vice President at the American Heart Association. As part of our Heart of the Business Conference series, we are collecting donations on behalf of the Metro Chicago Heart Walk. Thank you for your donations, and thank you for watching this and all future episodes of the Heart of the Business Conference series. We're also fortunate to have many wonderful sponsors supporting our efforts and those of Metro Chicago Heart Walk. Today, I'd like to highlight Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, a strong supporter of our efforts here, and also the medical plan within which we sponsor for our employees. Again, all proceeds collected from you, and we mean all proceeds, will be delivered directly to the Metro Chicago Heart Walk. This is an event created by the American Heart Association to attract community involvement and financial support for the AHA. In fact, MedHQ is also donating to the Heart Walk through 100% matching contributions. That is dollar for dollar. Now back to the matter at hand. In today's episode, our host, John Page, will dialogue with Lisa Hinton, and their topic is the mission and current objectives of the American Heart Association. With all that said, John and Lisa, take it away.
Hi there, this is John Page for Heart of the Business. Today, my guest is Lisa Hinton. She is the Executive Director of the Metro Chicago affiliate of the American Heart Association here in wonderful Chicagoland. Lisa, welcome to Heart of the Business.
Thank you, John.
Tell me a little bit about Lisa and the Heart Association. How long have you been involved with the Heart Association?
Sure. So I first started working for the Heart Association in 2011, but I have a long career in voluntary health nonprofit work, so certainly have been around in a few different disease states. I have been in this role with the American Heart Association for the past year, and just really loving it. We focus on Chicago, Cook County, and really the collar counties. So my role focuses heavily on the work we do to both raise funds and fuel our mission, but also the work we do to impact communities at a very local level.
Well, it must be a specific challenge in these COVID days, trying to run a nonprofit, fundraise, do all kinds of things. One of the things this is doing is helping to raise some funds for the American Heart Association. So I appreciate your time here today. How has COVID impacted heart disease? I mean, is there an impact?
There's a great impact in a lot of different ways, actually. So initially, early data with COVID, we saw that just looking at patient outcomes, that a lot of people who were getting COVID or who were having worse outcomes, I should say, from COVID, were individuals who had a pre-existing chronic disease or disease condition, something like heart disease, or could be diabetes or had a stroke. So some pre-existing condition really was related to much more severe outcomes if you did contract COVID. So initially, of course, that was very alarming to us at the Heart Association, and we certainly sprung into action pretty quickly to try to understand that a little bit more. It is a new novel disease, as we've heard ad nauseum at this point, and there's a lot more to understand. So while we're seeing some of those correlations or relationships, there's a lot more to learn. For example, there's the potential that COVID in a previously healthy individual could have structural damage on the heart or other damage that leads to heart disease or stroke or difficulties later on. So a lot to learn still, but certainly a lot of tie-ins with both heart disease and stroke.
I mean, heart disease itself is a leading killer of folks in the United States. That's a big problem to begin with, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Heart disease is the #1 killer of people in the United States, actually people globally as well. So definitely a big problem to contend with.
What are the major factors that go into heart disease? What do I need to be looking for?
Yeah, yeah. So do you mean warnings or factors that can lead to heart disease?
Well, I would say I'm stressed right now because of COVID. That's
Yeah.
obviously adding to the problem. But are
Mhm.
there other symptoms that I should be looking for that that beyond that stress of being locked down?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things that our science has shown over the years is that most forms of heart disease and stroke are 80% preventable. So if
Okay.
you think of it, number one killer, but 80% of the time it could be prevented. So there's something going on there. And so we've spent a lot of time understanding that. And really the factors that contribute to heart disease the most, I'll put them in two buckets.
Okay.
There's what I'll call healthy living or lifestyle components. And so certainly that stress management, like you talked about. So overall mental wellness actually has a lot of correlation with heart disease and stroke as well, because it affects your overall health. But things like exercise, managing your weight, avoiding obesity, proper nutrition. I mean, food is definitely medicine, and we have done a lot to investigate the right heart healthy diets that can help prevent heart disease and stroke and many other poor health outcomes in life. You want to manage your blood pressure. Blood pressure is called the silent killer because lots of times you can't feel it. If you have high blood
Right.
pressure, if you're feeling it, it's probably because you're in some kind of emergency cardiac or other situation. So knowing your numbers, knowing what those are, making sure that you're limiting consumption of sugary beverages or alcohol, you're eating right, you're exercising. All of that helps your physical health, your heart health, your mental health. And of course, during COVID, there's barriers to all of that right now.
Right.
Initially gyms shut down, people were stuck at home. It was a stressful time. There has been, especially in lower socioeconomic communities, the lack of access to fresh fruits and vegetables. You think when the world contracts and goes inward, like during a pandemic, it makes access to some of these things so much harder for your average person. So there's this bucket of kind of lifestyle or things that you can focus on there. But then there's also a bucket that we look very closely at that is well known as social determinants of health. But these are really issues of equity, of racial justice, of things that are very important and really coming to a head in society right now. But to think of this and to put it into a short line that you may understand, many people are shocked to find out that your zip code actually determines how long you live better than your genetic code.
Well,
So
and
your
that's
zip
especially
code.
true here in Chicago, right?
It is. So in Chicago, we have one of the largest life expectancy gaps in the country at 30 years. So if you live in Inglewood, your life expectancy is 30 years less than if you live in the Gold Coast.
And
It's
that's
shocking.
less than 5 miles away, right?
It is, and it's due to socioeconomic factors. So when you look at health, about 20% of any given person's health has to do with access to health care and health care overall. The other 80% is that combination of lifestyle behaviors and socioeconomic factors. So education level, income, your access to healthy foods in your neighborhood, your access to transportation or housing, all of those things really factor into your health so heavily. And so you started by asking about COVID, but in a time of a global pandemic when many people are losing their jobs and we're in an economic recession and there's a fear of going into healthcare settings or getting that help, all of that compounds to make these issues much worse.
Well, and I think that's especially true. If you think about it, I want to put it off because I don't want to go to the ER. Why? Because I'm afraid that if I go to the ER, go to the hospital, there are sick people there. And, I just have a little indigestion or I've got a pain in my arm or a pain in my chest and I'll put it off and see what happens. That's probably not a good idea. What do you think?
Not a good idea. In fact, it's a very alarming idea, and you wouldn't be alone. I mean, that's what I would say too. You wouldn't be alone. And sadly, we have seen an increase in deaths from heart attack and stroke for that very reason, because people, especially in March, April, May, you know, those early months, people were terrified of calling 911, of going to the ER, because of fear of the risk of exposure to COVID-19 largely. So you kind of have that going on, and people are having symptoms like, you know, shortness of breath, pain in my chest, all of that, like you're saying, which could be a heart attack or could not be, but they're not seeking help. And then hours go by and then it's too late. So when we actually look at data of, you know, from the past several years, we can see data, and it's kind of morbid to say this, but of deaths by cause, et cetera. And at any given annual period, there's peaks and valleys seasonally in number of deaths in different areas. And so, of course, from March to June, we saw a peak. But when you dove into that data, a good chunk of it are not COVID deaths. They're deaths from heart disease and stroke for that very reason. So the AHA launched a campaign called Don't Die of Doubt to help reinstill the public's confidence in seeking medical care, especially if you're having any of those symptoms like you were talking about, right? It is the safest place and the best thing to do, to call 911 and to go to the hospital.
And heart disease is not just a male-dominated disease, is it? Because I know back in the day, I always used to think 50-year-old guys. My dad was the first male to live past 50. It's all guys. That's not true, though, is it?
It's not true. Heart disease is the #1 killer of women. And sadly, it's starting to impact younger women. So you might think initially that's women, you know, over 55 or into their 60s, 70s, 80s. And really we're seeing heart attack, stroke happening in women 35 to 50, and those numbers and trends increasing. So it's certainly not a man's disease as you might think about. It is the #1 killer of women.
Do we have any idea why those younger cases are coming up?
You know, that's a good question. There's probably a lot of factors, but certainly, you know, some of what we have seen are women are not hitting physical activity requirements, suggestions for healthy living. So there's a lot of barriers and stressors on women. Access to healthy foods, certainly, but women are ranked very low on getting the recommended number of minutes for exercise, as I mentioned. Women also tend to put themselves last. They don't always seek care. They, you know, are, especially in that age range, taking care of kids, taking care of parents. You're in that sandwich generation. You may also be working full time, running a household, and so you're not prioritizing your health as much as you should. And so you know, those are some of the reasons we think it might be contributing, but there's definitely a lot more to learn there.
Now, I recognize that lifestyle makes a big impact, and I shouldn't have that third pork chop or sit on the couch and eat a bag of chips. But are there other things that I should be doing that, you know, could prevent having a heart attack?
Well, manage your stress. We started this talking about stress. Yeah, and there's actually a lot of great science and research in meditation. So you think of your mental well-being, ways to manage that stress. That's really important. We talked a bit about nutrition and physical activity for sure. Again, I'll go back to something I already said, but just knowing your numbers. I mean, know your risk factors. Do you have a genetic history of heart disease or stroke in your family, of diabetes, of any chronic disease? Are you regularly, at least annually, getting checked for your blood glucose levels, you know, making sure that those are in the right place, your cholesterol, and then regular checks on your blood pressure. I think everyone should have a blood pressure cuff at home. I know not everyone does.
That one right here at my desk, I actually do.
You are a model person.
You know, blood pressure cuff, and they're only about $30. So I mean,
they are.
It's easy to do. You just push a button and it takes it and lets you record it. But it is intriguing to know what it is and to feel what the blood pressure is. when you have that headache and it's pounding, sometimes it's really not just a headache. It's other things that have set you off for the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, use that blood pressure cuff, regularly. Also go get it checked at the doctor. I'd say do both. Don't just do one, definitely do both. When you do take your blood pressure, so John, I don't know if you know this or not, you may, but maybe you'll think of it next time you use that blood pressure cuff. There's a right way to take your blood pressure and there's a wrong way to take your blood pressure. So some of the key things you want to remember, you want to be in a quiet space. You don't want to be in the middle of a conversation or listening to something, because that can make your blood pressure go up. You don't want to have just had a cup of coffee or be sitting there with a full bladder, things that could increase that pressure. You don't want to have just run up a flight of stairs, obviously. So you want to be relaxed. Another thing you want to do is have both feet flat on the ground. So that may seem simple, but really easy. Both feet flat on the ground, your arm in a resting position. If you have a table or an armrest near you, that's helpful, but your arm in that resting position, and you just want to stay calm. I mean, those are the big things to remember. And if you get a weird reading, take it again. Right. So making, that regular check can be really important.
And the time of day is important too, right? If you take it in the morning, right after you get up, versus just when you get home from work and it's been a stressful day, it could fluctuate during the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your blood pressure is not a stagnant number. It changes how you change throughout the day. And so when we look at monitoring blood pressure, multiple readings are helpful, because you might have a high reading and that doesn't necessarily mean you have high blood pressure. To be diagnosed with high blood pressure, you have to have multiple sustained high readings, right, over a period of time, because you're right, you might be in a stressful moment. You might, as I said, like maybe your bladder's full, maybe you just had coffee not long ago and forgot about it. All those things can impact your reading. And so you definitely want regular checks on that.
I know that your website, heart.org, has a lot of information on it.
It does.
I love to cook, but grew up in an Italian family, so abbondanza was, the call of the day. But there are things that you can do to offset that without having to eat bland, tasteless food, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we look at recommendations, in fact, it's the opposite of bland. One of the things we like to tell people to do is to add color to your plate. You don't have anything more bland than a bunch of fried food, right? That's all brown. That is the most bland in terms of color that you can be, even if it tastes good. And we all like that sometimes. But adding color to your plate is so important. And then you can pay attention to that color. Do you have something orange? Are you having something green? Because you know what's orange, green, or red? Those are fruits and vegetables. And increasing the number of servings you have every day of fruits and vegetables is one of the number one things you can do to improve your diet. So just that helps you get the nutrients you want, because it's not all just about calorie counting. It's about using nutrition to feed and fuel your body and improve your health. And so adding fruits and vegetables, making sure you're getting lots of servings of fruits and vegetables, limiting I mentioned this before, but alcohol, it's not a none thing. We're not saying you can't have any, but limit that, right? You don't binge drink, be smart, don't drink really sugary things in general. In fact, water is always best. So you want to avoid a lot of high sugar drinks like sodas or Gatorades or things like that as a regular thing you consume every day. Certainly everything in moderation, but you really want to limit that. Especially we want kids to limit that, because they are so susceptible to wanting that too.
When they get used to it.
Yeah.
The more sugar you eat, the more sugar you believe, same as salt, more
it's
salt.
It's addictive.
Yeah, it is.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned salt, because you want to watch your sodium. Right. And that doesn't mean you can't add salt to your food. I cook with salt all the time. But where hidden sodium is, that's what you really want to watch. So when you go to the grocery store, all those middle aisles with packaged foods, there's so much hidden sodium in those foods, or can be. So you want to look at those labels and know how much sodium's in them and make wise purchasing decisions based on that.
I want to be a perimeter shopper, right? Somebody told me once, you got to shop the perimeter. The
that's
meat
where the best
aisle
stuff for you is.
And the produce aisle are all on the perimeters. All the stuff in the middle, just like a cream puff. tastes good, but not necessarily good to you, right?
Yeah. I mean, even if you think about it, like if you're like me and you love bread, right? I love bread.
Oh
So
yeah.
whole grains are going to be a lot better for you than, white grains. Whole grains are going to be a lot better for you. But if you think of it, a packaged bread that's meant to sit in one of those middle shelves and be good for 2 months is going to have a lot of extra stuff in it you don't need, versus bakery bread on the perimeter, right? That maybe you have some good whole grain bakery bread that's fresh and is only going to stay fresh for a week. And that's
It's
what
heavy
you
and
should pick.
solid too.
Right. So there's a lot of ways to just tweak. Brown rice instead of white rice, some different things like that to watch. And then when you look at meats, lean meats are best. So avoiding fatty meats as much as you can. Fish is great for you. So you said you're Italian. I know Italians eat fish. So
They
fish
eat
is
fish.
always great for you too. It has some really good fatty omega-3s there that are really good for you. So you can really do a lot, and spices are your friend. Salt
Oh,
isn't
I
the
love spice. Yeah.
only
Food
thing.
that you can spice up is great. Not bland, not tasteless.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't need always all of the creams or fats to make it have flavor. There's a lot that you can do there.
And you're right, the colors do help the presentation, and presentation in food. If you look at, any kind of food magazine, it's all about the presentation. It's all about how it looks, and it looks great. It
Absolutely.
probably tastes great too.
Absolutely. And then you want to watch portion control. That's something we're really bad at as
No.
Americans. You go to a restaurant and you get a meal that's double the size of what you really need. So watching that, right? Knowing your body and stopping before you feel that really full feeling. There's a lot you can do there just in portion control that will help too.
So, unlike some of these restaurants, a pound of pasta is really not a single serving, right?
It is not.
If I remember correctly.
I feed my family of 4 with a pound of pasta, and we have leftovers. So it
Yeah,
is not a
yeah.
single serving. Yeah. Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly, meat, a deck of card size, is probably a 3-ounce, 4-ounce portion, as opposed to a 28-ounce T-bone.
Right. And, that depends again on how lean is the meat you're eating. I mean, absolutely that's true no matter what. But we have great recommendations on our website too that go into really detailed specifics on, dietary recommendations. So if you're going to have chicken, how many ounces versus if you're having a lean cut of steak, how many ounces of that, right? How many servings of fruits and vegetables, how much sodium, under, I think it's 1,200 milligrams, different things like that for different metrics there. So
And
definitely a lot
awareness
of great
is important.
information.
I mean, people think I go to McDonald's, I'm going to get a filet of fish. That's not necessarily the brightest thing to do, because they think I'm eating fish, but you're really not. And
It's
looking
fried.
at what you're eating and the calorie counts in addition to the content is probably an important consideration.
Yeah. In fact, one of the things, we talked earlier about the life expectancy gap in Chicago and some of the health equity issues we're facing. And I mentioned access to healthy foods or access to food. And so sometimes what we find too in communities is the opposite, and it's what we call a food swamp. So instead of a food desert where you can't find food, it's actually a food swamp. And that means you might have no grocery store, one corner store, but then you have every fast food place all lined up right there. And so the easy choice, the cheap choice, the accessible choice is actually a very poor choice for your health. And so that in communities in that way, you're flooded with easy options that actually aren't good for you. And so that, we talk about that being a food swamp. And so you have to look at all angles of that. At the AHA, we care a lot about nutrition security, which is food security, access to calories in a sense, but also the right nutrition. So hunger plus the right nutrition. And so it's taking that one step further. John, I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
Too, that I always just find shocking when I talk to anyone about this. Because the AHA has this ideal diet, right? This ideal diet for heart health. And we constantly survey to see how we're doing. Have Americans as a whole increased their consumption of fruits and vegetables? And not enough, but they have reduced consumption of sugary beverages. There's some things we're doing better in than others. What percentage of American adults do you think eat an ideal diet every day?
6%.
You are closer than most, 1.4%.
Holy schlamoli, really?
Right, right. So no matter what seat you're sitting in, you probably have some work to do. We all do. 1.4%.
I am probably, I'll tell you my dirty little secret. I have never had a real Coke. I've had a weight problem my entire life and have never had a real Coke. I tried one once and it was so sugary that I couldn't do it. Now, I'm not doing myself any favors because I drink iced tea a lot, unsweet iced tea, mostly water, but it's brown water. It's not necessarily good for me.
Unsweet is good though.
Better than Coke.
It's so much better. Absolutely. And the diet drinks aren't necessarily good either if they have artificial sweeteners in it. So you might not be getting that same sugar content, but a lot of artificial sweeteners have some bad things in them too. So, but it's not, it's definitely not good and you want to avoid it. You know, in my house, we don't buy it. We don't keep it here. So if there's a time that we have, a soda or a pop, depending on where you're from, what you want to call that, right? It's very rare. It's some kind of special occasion. We don't do it. And that is one of the places that kids especially consume so much sugar because you don't think about it as much, right? It's a drink. You're thirsty. It's a drink, or maybe you want the caffeine that's in a Coke or whatever it might be. But the amount of sugar you're consuming is wildly unhealthy. So thinking about what you drink is really important. And I'd say, you mentioned that it tasted too sweet. I feel that way too. And so I'd challenge anyone to go for a period of time without drinking a sugary beverage, and it'll be hard to go back. I can't even do sugar in my coffee anymore. It's too sweet for me. It'll be hard to go back once you get used to not having it.
In the South, I ordered iced tea one time, and in the South, iced tea is sweet iced tea. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was outrageous. And you're right. You could drink. I mean, and talking about portion control, a drink is not 32 ounces. I know we like to think that, and I like a big cup, but the reality is filled with ice, it's a little bit better, but 32 ounces is not a single serving.
It is not. That's half the water you need in a day. I mean, that's...
If we could only drink 2 of those filled with water, we'd be good, right? And you don't have to do it all at one sitting. So the other thing you talked about was all or none. I don't have to go from eating at McDonald's every day to eating at McDonald's never.
No.
I can transition my diet, can't I?
Yes, you absolutely can. Every improvement is going to help a little bit. And it's not about perfection every day. It's more about the pursuit of betterment, right? And
progress, right?
Progress, right. And if you start paying attention to how you feel, you'll notice you feel different when you eat lean meats, fruits, and vegetables than when you eat a big meal of fried food, right? You will start to notice you feel different, and that will probably encourage you to continue to eat better too.
Are there suggestions on your website, the heart.org website, that if I totally am oblivious to my health, I really haven't been taking care of myself. I'm 35. I think I'm going to live forever. But I'm beginning to think, I've got little paunch, I've got the COVID-19 like the freshman 15. I've got the 19-pound gain from sitting on Zoom meetings all day. What's the first thing I should do? Where should I go on the website to look?
So if you go to heart.org /healthy living, you will find everything you need there. And really, to make it easier, just go to heart.org and one of the headers is healthy living. So click on that. Okay. And there will be categories for wellness. So overall, that's where you'll actually find some guided meditations or things that you can do. There's a category for at-home workouts. There's a category for healthy eating where all of the recommendations are there, but you also have recipes. So if you don't know where to start, we make it easy in that way. So there's all these categories where you can start clicking around and finding some great resources. But truly, if you want to do something, if you're doing nothing and you want to do something, just get up and go for a walk, right? If you're watching this right now or listening to this, take it on the road with you, walk around your house in a circle. If it's raining outside, go for a walk outside while we still have weather where you can do that. Just a little bit helps. When we say, so the AHA recommends 150 minutes for adults of exercise, moderate activity a week. That doesn't mean you have to go run a few miles every day. You can go walk a mile. You can go, just start walking around the block. There's a lot of places to start, and a lot of things that get your heart rate up or would count as activity that you might not think too, like gardening. You're out there and you're moving around. Yard work is an activity. Maybe you like something a bit more interactive. You want to go shoot a basketball for a while, something like that. There's a lot of ways to be active, but it's about getting up off your seat and just going. And one of the easiest things any of us can do is just go for a walk.
Just like Nike tells us, just do it, right?
Just do it.
Just do it. Just get up out of that seat. Are there other suggestions? If I'm looking at a female issue with heart disease, are there special things that I need to be doing as a female to take care of myself?
I mean, a lot of the tips are things we've already talked about. I mean, exercising, managing stress, healthy eating, a lot of that science is the same. We do have an awareness platform and resource platform called Go Red for Women. And so I'd recommend you go to goredforwomen.org. You'll be connected in with other women who are similar to you, hear their stories, connect with other people, get those healthy tips and resources there. One thing that women tend to fall short on as well in quantity and quality is sleep. And a good night's sleep is good for your heart too. So all of those pieces of overall wellness are really good. So prioritize yourself, I'd say, to most women. It's what I struggle most with too. But prioritize yourself, carve out that time for you to take care of you, because you're not going to be good at taking care of anyone else until you're doing that. So I think that's what I'd say there.
I know that fundraising for the Heart Association tends to be things like the Heart Walk. Well, that didn't happen this year. Are there other things we can do to help you in your mission?
There's a lot you can do. I mean, certainly we still have platforms to donate. I know that you all have an opportunity at the end of this, and MedHQ has graciously and generously offered to match any gifts made. So we're excited about that. So certainly if you can, donate. There's a lot of other ways to help our mission as well. So one of the ways that we help create healthy change in our communities and in our environment is through advocacy. So if you think of policy changes, that is the quickest way to impact a big group of people. And I'll just draw on one example from that. So last year, we were a big part of getting what we call Tobacco 21 passed in the state of Illinois. So that makes it harder for youth to start smoking. We know smoking's bad, it's unhealthy, bad for your heart, bad for your brain. By raising the minimum age to 21, to be able to purchase tobacco products, it prevents youth from smoking. That's the short of that. So our advocacy efforts, the fact that we can go into a bar or a restaurant and not have someone smoking in there, that's all advocacy work the AHA has done. So we have a network called You're the Cure, and it's just you'rethecure.org. You can also get to it just from heart.org, so very easy. But you can sign up to be an advocate, and that can be as simple as sending emails to your legislators. You can make calls if you want to do a little bit more, but really easy to sign up to be an advocate with the American Heart Association. And beyond donating, that's one of the fastest, quickest ways that anyone can make an impact.
That's great. I have a particular affinity for heart disease, and having a father who was the first male to live past 50, that was an impactful consideration growing up. And I kind of did get scared straight on smoking when I was in high school. We did a tour of a pathology lab, saw a heart of a 42-year-old, I still remember it, and it's probably 50 years ago, 42-year-old woman. It was in a jar, and it was gray and icky looking. And I said, is that because it's in the bottle? And the pathologist told me, no, that's because she smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And you do realize her heart is in a jar now. So that means she's gone. 2 packs of cigarettes was not something I aspired to. So yeah, I never had a cigarette, never had a sugary drink. and I still was super morbidly obese, but I got together and got it done. So
You're doing
I
good
can
now.
do it. Anybody can do it.
Yes.
Anything
Change
else
is
you
possible.
want to tell us about heart disease? What we can do to help ourselves? Because at the end of the day, that we've got to take control of our own lives.
Yeah, you definitely do. I mean, we've talked a lot about the different health behaviors. Certainly, make sure that you are trying to make good choices each day. Get out and take the walk, drink the glass of water, make the healthy choice when choosing foods. All of those things that we've discussed. And be kind to yourself, be kind to each other. I mean, kindness goes a long way for our mental health and our overall health there. So if you want any more resources, we've said this a lot, but go to heart.org. It's all free. It's there. We want to help everyone on their journey to living a longer, healthier life. So I just want to say thank you. Thanks for the time, and to MedHQ for the partnership. MedHQ has been such a great partner over the years, and we're excited to be able to bring this message and these important tips to such a big audience.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for all your help today. I'm going to go out and I'm going to make sure I recognize the symptoms and the signs. And what did you call it? Don't die of doubt, right?
Don't die of doubt.
There you go.
Yes.
Lisa Hinton, Executive Director, Metro Chicago affiliate of the American Heart Association, heart.org. Thank you for joining us today on Heart of the Business. Thanks, Lisa.